Hey folks, it's Jang here having a look at the RPM hybrid gearbox housing for Traxxas two-wheel drive vehicles. And this is going to work for the good old Rustler, the Stampede, the two-wheel drive Slash, the Bandit, and any custom sort of vehicle that uses those same gearboxes, the exact same gearbox that's shared between all the 10th scale Traxxas two-wheel drives. These just came out recently. They're available at normal places that sell hobby stuff. You can see the price, the suggested price right there. And I actually got 3 of these, so I'm able to very quickly swap over to, here's a package that's already opened, and you can see what comes in here. Comes with it, including the, oh, wait a minute. I've got my instructions in the other room, but I'll just open this package up the rest of the way. The big catch about this thing, really nice thing about it, is that it includes an aluminum motor mount, something that we've needed, desperately needed, and desired for a long time for these poor Traxxas vehicles that have an all plastic gearbox. So this is an aluminum piece. It's an 1/8 inch thick, and it comes off separately. So these are the things that you get here. You get the gearbox halves, and these are just the standard size. It's going to be a direct drop-in replacement onto your vehicle. This just bolts on as part of the assembly process. I'll get to this in just a second. They do give you some new hardware here, some new screws and bolts. You're going to end up using a mix of your new and old hardware to complete the assembly of this thing. It does not include a gear cover because you just use your stock gear cover, and for that matter it doesn't include a motor because you'll use whatever motor that you've got. Now these are interesting because these, as you can see, are your little hinge pin blocks or suspension mounts, A-arm mounts, and they are separate. Yes, they are separate from the transmission, which is a good thing because they give you 2 sets. They give you one set that is set for 0 degrees of toe in. That is stock. That is exactly what your vehicle will give you normally. But if you have a Stampede or a Rustler in particular, and you want to actually add some toe in, because you haven't added any toe in via your hub carriers or via some different A-arms, you can do that now right here. 3 degree toe ins, 3 degree toe in blocks that will give you a nice added bonus of extra rear traction, especially when you're in turns. It's really dramatically going to help with the performance of your vehicle, even though the main thing about this is that you get the aluminum mount. The great things about the aluminum mount, if you're not familiar with it or familiar with the concept in general, first off, the plastic ones have always had an issue of over time, especially if you change gearing a number of times, they'll groove up. The lower screw will start to indent into the plastic. In more recent years, they've used a washer head screw down there at the for the bottom screw for holding your motor in, which has helped with the problem a lot. But still, even with that, it can slip a little bit. Also, the plastic motor mounts do not dissipate heat. This will dissipate some heat. It'll actually act as a little bit of a direct connect heat sink for your motor in there. I have gone ahead, let me go ahead and show you the instruction sheet that comes with this. It's got a couple of CAD diagrams in there, but as you can see, there's a lot of text, a whole lot of text. This is not the most enjoyable thing to go through. I can tell you that because I've already gone through the process in advance, and couple issues with this. First of all, yes, you have to read every line. It's very dense. It doesn't even use bullet points and stuff like that. I mean, this could have been so much better if they just used maybe 2 pieces of paper, double-sided or something. Also, this little reference sheet up here And it's supposed to be 1-to-1 scale. It's not quite. I would still recommend that you check your hardware, especially if you're not intimately familiar with the visual difference between a 10mm and a 12mm, and you don't use longer screws like the 20 and the 23 a lot. You should just check your hardware as you're doing your assembly, rather than using this as a guide to actually put the thing up there. Because for me, it wasn't, especially between these ones that are close, it wasn't good enough. I wouldn't recommend that folks who haven't done this before just try to use that. And then the instructions, it's telling you where to put the different types of screws, and the lines overlap and stuff. But just look very carefully and really take your time with this, and do read the instructions if you can muster up the patience, because it is important. They do have good information in there that's going to help you to get through this as smoothly as possible. So, like I said, I have done this. So I'm going to move these guys off to the side. There we go. This is the completed transmission, and I just put back on my stock spur. It might not be a stock spur, but close enough. Yeah, it goes together pretty solidly. One thing that I had worried about when this thing was first announced was that it would be a little bit on the soft side if it used their same standard blend of nylons that they talk about, that they use for their A-arms, which and shock towers and stuff. You know, this stuff is flexible. You know, it's intended to flex to absorb shock. It does have fibers in it, but it's a medium soft nylon blend. That's how I would characterize it. But I don't know if this is actually that same material or not. It's hard to tell. It sounds drier. It sounds stiffer, and it kind of feels a little bit different, but not as different as I expected. And when I use a really sharp X-Acto knife blade to just see how much penetration that I can get off of a very small amount of pressure on it, seems to be very similar to me. So it may be the same material, it may not be. I don't know for certain, but what I do know is that this thing, once it's fully assembled, it's very stiff. I think it's engineered very, very well, especially just the way that the two halves key together, and even without hardware going through, it still feels like a solid piece. You've got so much room here. You've got a lot of room to adjust your mesh back and forth, and it's nice and open on the side, so that's going to allow a little bit of extra air to get in there. This part here is left open also, leaving a lot of the back side exposed to help dissipate heat. Everything lines up pretty well. It has about the same amount of resistance, the same ability to spin freely as my stock one did after I had cleaned it up. So I think just design-wise, it's really, really good. Now, for attaching it, once you get to attaching it to your vehicle, it's a little bit different than stock. You do use your 3mm screws at the rear, the stock 2 right here, and then here are the arm mounts. Let me get those lined up correctly. These are going to install, so there are actually 2 different size holes on these. The front one has a larger hole that's just going to pass the screw right through. What's going to happen is the rearmost hole is a smaller one. That's going to get the stock rear bolt, stock 4mm bolt. It's going to go through the chassis and then thread into that. And you put a nut over the top of that, one of the included nuts, to help secure that down. And then for the front, they give you a longer bolt, a longer countersunk flathead 4mm guy right there. That's also going to go through the chassis, and that one's going to pass right through this front hole. It's not going to thread into that. It's going to thread into this. It's going to thread into ear on the transmission half, and then you put a nut over the top of that also. I don't know if there are any types of outdrive, larger heavy-duty diff yokes that may be so large that that nut might get in the way. They do require that you use those nuts if you're going to take advantage of RPM's replacement warranty program. But because you're threading into this, it is possible to leave that nut out if it's absolutely critical for whatever you're installing here. But I think that if you have a yoke that's so large, I don't know of one in particular, but it is a possibility that some weird aftermarket things are just so huge they could get in the way. But if that was the case, they would also be getting in the way of the aluminum mount right here. May need to be trimmed back. You may need to use a smaller spur gear, but that's all speculation. I'm confident that they've tested it with the standard setups and the standard type of equipment that you would have there. So that's it. That is the RPM hybrid gearbox. Roughly 30 bucks. I think very well spent. This is something that we Traxxas two-wheel drive fans have wanted for the longest time, and this allows you to get that nice sturdy aluminum mount without going with a full aluminum case for the whole thing. I made the mistake of failing to weigh this thing, to weigh the stocker before I started taking all the original gears out. But I did weigh basically just this set plus a set of mounts compared to the stock transmission halves that I was left over with. The difference was, I believe it was 9 grams. This one being heavier, but the difference will be a little bit more pronounced when you include the extra hardware that is required for this compared to stock. So it is a little bit heavier than stock, but not by a tremendous amount. One other thing, let me point out about these arm mounts. You'll notice that the front to rear offset is different. So they actually took into account the difference of wheelbase that you would get, and I'm pretty sure they either eliminated that or minimized that when you change your toe in board by angling the arms. When you angle the arms in, you can see that the other end is going to move in the opposite direction. So they've offset the mounts to either zero that out. I haven't actually installed this on a vehicle, but it's either zeroed out or brought down to a minimum, so you're not dramatically decreasing your wheelbase on your vehicle. That's it for that one. Hope that had some good info for you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you later.